futures literature. That's what I specialize in for more than 40 years. And the very general outlook is getting murkier and gloomier. As some of you may know, I have a new website, globalforesightbooks.org, and I'll be using my Book of the Month selections to back up my position in terms of muddling down. And Lana, you have a handout? Excellent. The arguments for hope and optimism that I've been able to distill, and this is a short list, but arguably at least some countries, communities, organizations, corporations, and individuals are going green to some degree. For example, Germany has a national sustainable development strategy. Korea has a national strategy for green growth. Both of these reported by the OECD. The UK is going to start a Green Deal program this year that's going to cut greenhouse gases by 2050. In the US, of course, we don't believe in national planning of any sort, so it's, you have local efforts that are taking place to various degrees. For example, I live in the Syracuse area on the other side of the lake, and they recently proclaimed themselves an emerald city, which may help. They're concerned about capturing rainwater, this sort of thing. Canada is my understanding. I talked to two well-placed individuals since I've been here who both said unequivocally that Canada is moving in the opposite direction from sustainability. I don't know if there's any dispute. How many people here are from Canada? I'm curious. Wow, okay, about a third, okay. And would you agree with that statement, that moving backwards, away? Yes, yes, okay. Sorry, well, we try to tell it like it is. Oil rules. Well, there's a lot of bucks in it if you can sell them. I understand there may be a problem there. Anyway, the second reason is big business is certainly aware of this. In addition to promoting oil and gas, they're trying to promote anything, and maybe they'll come up with some good renewable solutions. Also, you may have noticed there's a recent ad campaign by Dow Chemical in which they say, "Solutionism, the new optimism." And other big corporations are doing measurable things, I think. Walmart has made considerable savings in energy, and Samsung is going to devote a lot of its R&D into developing new products. Thirdly, there may be a major tech fix pretty soon. Perhaps the most promising one is Craig Venter is exploring synthetic biology to design ultra low-cost, safe, non-polluting algae for fuel. And this could happen, breakthrough at any time. The question is scaling it up to widespread use, whether it's compatible with our additional systems. The energy picture changes quite rapidly. You remember, it was just 10 years ago we were all talking about the hydrogen economy and fuel cells, and that's been put on the shelf for a while. And then just in the last 2 or 3 years, fracking has entered into the picture, and there's suddenly the discovery of a great deal of natural gas, and it's a hugely controversial issue. And then possibly, just possibly, remotely possible, maybe climate change will go away. You know, if it's not a hoax that some of the deniers say, then it's simply a mass delusion among a great number of scientists. Or at least it might not be as bad as currently thought by the IPCC. That's about all I could say for hope and optimism at the moment. Now, I have 7 arguments for pessimism, and I make reference to some of the books. My book of the month, I have very extensive outlines, abstracts, reviews of the books that I think are most important to considering our global future. And the first argument for pessimism is that very likely climate change is not going away and that it's going to worsen. And that what we're seeing this summer, both in Canada and in the U.S., in terms of drought and heat, that this is a foretaste of more to come. Our local meteorologist in Syracuse says, well, this is all the fault of El Nino, but a lot of others are saying this is either completely due to climate change or certainly aggravated by climate change. Secondly, the world economy seems more or less likely to be dicey or worse for many years. That the euro's been on the verge of collapse now for about a year. It's up and down. It depends on what happens to the PIGS countries, and you know, it's not necessarily a rough spot, and then we're going to get over it and have a boom, if not a long boom, as Peter Schwartz was talking about back in 1999. But at the moment, the economic outlook, at least among the developed nations, is fairly gloomy. And the backup books for that is Jürgen Rander's 2052 book, which is by July 2012 Book of the Month, which hasn't been posted yet, and OECD's Future Global Shocks, in which they deal with more economic disruption, because there's a huge literature just saying what ought to be done for to avoid financial shocks, but very little has been done to change the global financial picture right now, so we just might expect more. Thirdly, the question of resources. The peakists, I think, take a quite simplistic position. There's more hope that it's a peak so that we will all devolve into our small self-sufficient communities, which would be great, but it ain't happening. But I think that Michael Clare has a recent book, which is my May Book of the Month selection on the race for what's left. And he sums it up, it's the end of easy everything, not only gas and oil, but in terms of minerals and rare earths, as well as agricultural land. And as there's more people who are scrambling for what's left, it's in more inaccessible places or in more politically dicey locations, so the costs are going to go up. And that's the conventional wisdom at the moment. It's nicely summarized by Clare. Fourthly, sustainability is still a distant goal. Although people say that they're going green, it may be in rather small, superficial ways. Perhaps there's lots of books on sustainability. They don't all agree with each other. A recent report of the UN High-Level Panel on Global Sustainability says it's simply not fast or deep enough, and they offer 56 proposals. But then you put that next to the World Watch Institute, which also has their State of the World report this year is on sustainable prosperity, but they have a different roadmap for what ought to be done and so forth. And one of the best books on this is Jennifer Clapp and who's the co-author from UBC, Doverne? Yes. Yeah, and Clapp is a colleague of Ted, and they take a political economy perspective in which they have four very distinct worldviews in this book, Paths to Sustainability. And it's fairly sobering. Okay, a fifth reason for this is, for gloom, is that both governments and academia are unable to address these problems. That the government problem is quite obvious, especially in the U.S., where we're in deadlock, political polarization. No one seems to point to the academia as a problem, but I think that's a problem too. And one reason for that is there aren't good, robust futures programs in a wide number of institutions, as once hoped for 30 or 40 years ago. The sixth reason is taking another sector which other people ignore, and this is the information and communications sector. And although there's a lot of people that say the internet is wonderful because it's brought all the world's information to our fingertips, which is true, and it's helped a lot of people to improve their research, which is true. But at the same time, infoglut creates a great number of problems. There's just more option choices, and it's a flood of information, as James Blake says in his massive overview of the history of information, which he concludes that it's a flood and that we have to do something to learn how to manage it better. And also at the same time, the new information technologies, there's a downside to it, and I have a lot of literature on my website to underscore that. And some of you may be familiar with Nicholas Carr on The Shallows, his book of the month for July 2010. And Alan B. and Sarowitz, The Techno-Human Condition in June 2011. Excellent book with, that I highly recommend. I'd also point out the issue of the cover story in Newsweek. Just last week was splashed eye disorder in the top about how the tweeting and texting and so forth, especially among the young people, that's creating a lot of psychiatric problems, and a lot of people may be in denial about that, but apparently there's good evidence for it. I encourage you to attend the professional forum on Monday, Embracing Complexity, in which this matter about information overload and other related matters will be discussed in much greater detail insofar as what futures can do about it. And then finally, a reason for pessimism is that the idea of the global mega crisis is a tough sell because it's a soft issue, meaning that it's difficult to define. There's lots of different definitions, and it's also slow. And when I wrote the introduction to the session that is in your program, I prefaced the whole thing with the anti-model of a hurricane, a Category 5 hurricane coming, and we all know what that is, and it all grabs our attention, and the hurricane forecasters have wonderful scenarios about the degree of probability of which path it'll take, and you can recognize the experts, and the politicians follow. And I really picked up on this when last year when we had, what was it, Hurricane Elaine? Irene, that's right. The one that wasn't so bad as a hurricane, but it brought a huge amount of rain. And it's going up the East Coast, and Chris Christie, who's the conservative governor of New Jersey, you know, he's acted like any other politician. Says we have to save lives, and he took control and so forth. So everybody can agree on the problem of what can be done in a hard mega crisis like that, and also one that's going to immediately unfold. Whereas the global mega crisis is fuzzy. It may be with us for decades. Bill says 20 or 30 years, but it may be with us forever because some of these problems are not solvable. These are just problems you address, such as conflict and security. So, for these 7 reasons, I have a generally pessimistic outlook, and I put numbers on it, defined as 20% disaster, 60% muddling down, 20% muddling up, and 0% in terms of rapid progress. And if Mitt Romney is elected, my odds will become 30-50, 20-0. And if Romney gets in, and if both houses of Congress become Republican, then I'm going to be even more pessimistic. It'll be 40% disaster, 50% muddling down, 10% for muddling up, and definitely 0 for progress. And that's for the short term. For the long term, it would get worse. Now, I still keep the door open a little bit for muddling up, that there'll be more goods and bads. But rapid progress and rise to maturity defies all experience. It's, you know, if you really push me, I say, yeah, it's remotely possible. And then, you know, you think of, can pigs fly? which is not impossible, really, given the new genetic engineering. But it's on that order of things. So I think that muddling down is the most sensible, cautious position to hold. If we dwell on disaster, we give up hope. If we hope that disaster or collapse will have an upside, it's a dicey bet. And if we focus too much on the techie upside, we fail to see the radical change of course that is needed in our 21st century thinking and institutions. Thank you.